Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
You're welcome back. Well, we got a little bit too cocky down there in Connacht for a while with our supremacy in Gaelic football. Ulster very much top dogs once again as we look ahead to this weekend with Donegal taking on Tyrone in the preliminary quarter-finals. Monaghan through as well to play Kildare down in Tullamore. Armagh already through to the quarter-finals, and you can throw in there as well, Derry I should mention as well, also through to the quarter-finals, and in the Tailteann Cup semi-finals both Down and Antrim are qualified for them. Down playing Laois on Sunday, and before that it is Antrim up against Meath. Declan Bogue is with us. Good evening, Declan. How are you keeping?
Not bad at all, Nathan. How are you getting on?
Ulster football is back. Did it ever go away?
Never went away. How many have we left? We've only a couple.
That's seven. That's 7 left.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if any of them will actually win anything. I suppose Down might be seen, I haven't looked at any odds, but they're probably priced up as certainly somewhere around the favourites for the Tailteann Cup at this point. And in beating Cavan, you'd have to say then they deserve that tag if they have it. Antrim have been surprisingly competitive and prone to unbelievable lapses. I think it was 28 points between themselves and Westmeath during the league, and there was other mitigating factors leading into that game that we can't really go into, but it took a real late rally when they played Down to beat them, and it took one of those last minute Sean Quigley goals for Fermanagh to beat them. So really Antrim could have been riding high in Division 3 this year. Down obviously finished third in that division. Meath came down, so it's going to be a good day's football on Sunday. I just fear for the general atmosphere around it. I'm not so sure whether Croke Park was the right place to have those two games. What do you think yourself?
No, I think the GA are stuck though when it comes to the Tailteann Cup, in that they're under so much pressure to show it respect and to be seen to be showing it respect, that there's a sense that Croke Park is the ultimate respect, that old line that every player wants to play in Croke Park, and by putting the semi-finals there's a carrot at the end of the stick for these players and they'll have their day in the sun. I'm not sure anybody wants to play in Croke Park in front of 15-20,000 people.
God knows, that might just be us as journalists being sort of, seen it, been there 100 times. I'm no longer wowed by it. But for if you look at the present Antrim squad, from Michael Byrne, the goalkeeper, right up to Ryan Murray, how many times have they played football in Croke Park?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true, as you say.
Never.
When you're sitting in the press box thinking this is easy.
I'd be struggling. Some of them may have played for the St. Roland's Lurgan team in the Hogan Cup final. I'm not quite sure, maybe Adam Loughlin or some of them if they're floating around the panel. But literally nobody has played for Antrim in Croke Park that's on the panel right now. And that might be, apart from your Kilcoo contingent, and it might be the same for the vast majority of Down. So you've got to, maybe that's exactly what they want, and maybe we're being harsh.
What sort of job is Conor Laverty doing in Down? We obviously look at the low point of last year and that trip to Dublin under James McCartan, and it was all just falling apart. He's brought them together very quickly, but they didn't get the promotion. They're in the Tailteann Cup. From a low base, it's a massive improvement. When you look at the talent in Down, how would you rate his season so far?
I don't know if it's a massive improvement, Nathan, and I don't think that they would be seeing it as that either. You're talking about them losing games in Division 2 as opposed to winning 4 games in Division 3. There was always a sense that what Down needed was a whole load of bolt-ons of Kilcoo. I'm not so sure that has particularly worked, because some of the Kilcoo players are struggling then actually get onto the team who had been there before, and then some of them are on and the jury's out whether they're actually might get away at Tailteann Cup. What the inclusion of a Tailteann Cup, or Down's inclusion in a Tailteann Cup, gives them is more games going into the summer, a better feel-good factor around the panel. But there's certain things he has done which I think are brave and innovative in that he has given players a chance to play for their clubs if they're on the fringes of the senior county setup. But he wouldn't, let's be honest, let's not kid ourselves. If they were in Sam Maguire and they were going into a preliminary quarter-final, nobody would have played for their clubs.
You don't think so?
Not a chance. Absolutely not. They know it's the Tailteann Cup. And, if you put it to them, of course they're going to say, no, we would have done that anyway. It's just not. I don't agree for a second that if they were in the All-Ireland Championship, they would have been risking someone like a Ryan McAvoy, your full back, like for the last number of years, to play for Kilcoo in the league. If you were heading into group games, we're talking about French players, like Ryan McAvoy's a French player. Eugene Brannigan has played in the last number of games. He was playing for his club, they just wouldn't have. There has been a bit of structure and a bit of organisation and a little bit of pride has come in, and he has introduced a good, vibrant backroom team. Marty Clark, Mickey Donnelly, and it is all sort of sizing up well for them. Jim McGuinness is involved in there, and look, they're certainly building on something, but a county like Down does, it's a long-term job. It was never going to be like Donegal were in 2011 when Jim McGuinness came in, because 4 years prior to that, Donegal were the National League champions, and nobody wins a National League title out of nowhere. That just doesn't happen. So Down were in a very, very different place. Their success will be measured incrementally over the course of 4 or 5 years.
So that's the Tailteann Cup. Looking at the All-Ireland preliminary quarterfinals then, Monaghan up against Kildare, Donegal Tyrone. Fascinating, because we will be judging their seasons understandably possibly on this performance. Where's this come from Donegal? I think everyone had written them off 2 or 3 months ago and thought this campaign is just going to fall to nothing, relegated from Division 1, not going to do anything in Ulster, will probably just fall flat and go through the motions in the round robin series, but here they are at home. Yeah,
and after they were beaten by Down, there was a sense that someone needs to take them out of their misery. Someone needs to throw in a towel here and do what's best for Donegal football for the year. But then I think there's a number of issues around Donegal. Obviously, then Carl Lacey parting ways with the football academy, other sort of administration bugbears or mistakes that are being made, or like reviews being carried into the running of football in Donegal. But really, it's not really related. It's about 3 different issues there, but neither of those 2 things are related to the senior football team, of which there is still significant talent. Like, you've still got your Brendan McColes, you've still got like Hugh McFadden, you've got Owen Ban Gallagher, fair enough, you've lost Ryan McHugh, but Paddy McBurdy is back, you've lost Michael Murphy, but you have gained, the like of Oisin Gallen has come back, Conor O'Donnell is there. Like, Donegal still is there's still talent there, and I don't know what has changed. It'd be very interesting for a county that's just completely overrun and awash with media, but no one has been able to kind of put their finger on it just quite yet what has happened. And sometimes when you speak to players that were part of successful teams, right? And then they say, I've been told this a couple of times recently by players who have won the ultimate, right? And they said then they buy the books, which their teammates and managers and all bring out, and they read that this happened and that happened, and then we dropped a second man into the right half forward position, and said, just that's not at all how it actually happened. What happened was we all at each other at half time and says everyone has to work, immediately increase their work rate by 10%. Maybe there's just a little bit of that with Donegal. People say, right, okay, we have messed around long enough here. We're going to start actually being honest with ourselves, and it has taken them maybe to a better place.
Well, nothing bad has ever come from writing a book about Donegal football, has it?
You're still talking about that?
Still available. Get it on Amazon right now. I'm not sure if it's still in the bookshops. I did wonder about Donegal, from what you've seen from them, as to, we're looking at this game against Tyrone, home advantage, the fact they won 2 of their games, but then you look at the way the fixtures worked out. They played Clare in that first game. albeit went down to Ennis and won that convincingly. And then the way it worked out, all the teams are through. It was something of a dead rubber against Monaghan in some ways, in that they'd already qualified, and you wonder, were both sides fully at it? Were they fully at it? Was there enough in that Donegal performance against Monaghan to suggest actually they could go and beat Tyrone, certainly put it up to Tyrone?
I absolutely do, because it's just one of those Ballybuffet evenings on Saturday. I don't know what the weather's giving out for, but I hope it is an absolute scorcher, and I hope that all the old enmity is there between them, because they just have such a lack of regard for each other. They have no time for each other. Whatever's happened in performances, you can talk about with the performances against Derry, Clare and Monaghan. But right now, it's all in the line against the Tyrone team that, no matter what you want to say about them, they played last year's championship. They've lost what? They've won one game in the last 5 games in championship. They drew at Westmeath. Their run is diabolical, and I can't remember the last time that a Tyrone team was so far back in terms of how long it had taken them since the consecutive defeats and draws in the championship. It certainly is unheard of in this current generation. And there's always a sense in Tyrone, well, it's going to kick in any minute now. It's all going to click. I'm not so sure that's just the way of it.
It's clicking for Darran Canavan.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
He just... Darran Canavan's personality is described to me, right? I've never had a conversation with him, but it's described to me that different people around Errigal Kieran would be. He is so conscious about being the son of Peter Canavan that he had made it his business in underage and coming through the ranks to be one of the boys, right? He hasn't given any interviews. It's not through lack of asking. People have asked Darran Canavan. He's never been put up for media. He's never done interviews. He just literally wants to be one of the boys. When he was a good bit younger, he used to do things like he would be straight through and goal. He would pass to someone, make it a support and run rather than take the shot himself, because he was so unselfish and he just wanted to be part of the collective. It has been put to him by successive managers that you actually... No, this is for you now. If you want to get past that man, then you go on ahead and finish that shot yourself. And I remember his debut against Derry in the McKenna Cup. I think it was the final in Armagh, and he was 18. And like we said, how exciting is he? And he says, Mickey Hart, who was not a man given to hyperbole, said, "This guy, everybody in the country should be getting excited about it." It was a bit like the time. The St. Brendan's manager talked about David Clifford being, he is just better than Maurice Fitzgerald. It's time to get excited about this guy. But it's taken him a couple of years to maybe fill out in his belief and become the man then that Tyrone looked to. But he's a complete gem. Like his father, it's a speed of thought, Nathan. Talk about nimble on your feet and close control, all those things, all those qualities he has. But if you ever wanted, if people said a forward like Peter Canavan couldn't survive in this era, well, there you have it. There's the proof. There's just cut out of him, not an imposing physique, not a big man, no big huge shoulders, just pure speed of thought, close control, and ability then to hoof the ball over from all angles.
I do always like the Brolly line of the Son of God when he's referring to Darran Canavan and what he can do with Tyrone. That's fascinating what you're talking about there, and his personality, and maybe accepting what he is, accepting what his father did, and thinking, you know what, I can go and be the superstar and accept the comparisons, and rather than almost being that unselfish player who, if I scored a goal here, if I scored 2-6 today, the first thing that's going to be spoken about is he's just like his dad, he's going to achieve what his dad's like. That almost running away from that for a while, but now maybe getting to a stage of maturity at, what is he, 22, 23, going, it's fine.
Yeah, plus too, he had a couple of injuries. People do, they wouldn't really be maybe aware of that. And muscular injuries at that age, when you're being asked to play for a lot of different teams, and then a bit of a run with Errigal Kieran and winning the Tyrone Championship and being recognised, well, this is Errigal Kieran were a club that were always annually tipped to win the Tyrone Championship, but they contrived to lose like their first round or early round games in some catastrophic ways. So, like, you know, winning championship games with your club and winning the county title, that can do wonders for a player too. Like, all these were different factors that sometimes, you know, you have to just maybe have that insider knowledge to know a wee bit more about it to see, well, there's a few jigsaw pieces that are slotting in here to make this, you know.
I feel like we've had this Tyrone conversation 10 times since they won the All-Ireland around the flatness and missing links and the players that left the panel and guys who didn't fully realise that their impact. They're stuttering along. You look at the performance against Armagh, think, well, maybe there was something there, but like, they should be out of this championship. Like, you know, I think we all expected John Heslin to go and do what John Heslin generally does. Like, is it raging against the dying of the light that gets them through on Saturday night, or is this actually an opportunity for them to kickstart their season, that if they were to go to Ballybuffet and win, that there's still enough talent, there's still enough muscle memory from winning All-Irelands that they can go on a run? I
don't know, because the confidence is in their boots. They still have one of the best goalkeepers in the game, right? Niall Morgan is one of the finest goalkeepers. They've got a full back line which you could pick it yourself any day of the week, like it's McKiernan, McNamee, Hampsey, a brilliant full back. And then, you know, Kennedy and Kilpatrick in midfield, Kennedy has shown himself like to be top class. Kilpatrick is a brilliant footballer too. Nobody would doubt the talent of Peter Hart or Conor Myler or a lot of these boys, but something about it, the overall mix, like, and it just sort of, they dip for 20-minute periods, or substitutions haven't exactly worked out for them. Like, you know, a couple of big games this year where they've taken off big names and they've put on a lot of youngsters towards the end of games, and all of a sudden then there's a complete collapse. Like, you know, if they take off of Matty Donnelly, like I'd seen a stat recently about the amount of games they've actually won without Matty Donnelly. I don't think they've won a game in a long time without Matty Donnelly playing a full 70 minutes. That was the stat. I can't remember the exact one, but it'd be worth examining. They need his leadership still. And after that, right, you look at 2021, the Cal McShane who is coming on and scoring goals. Cal McShane is nowhere near the team. Why? And, well, anytime you're ever asked, you're told he's injured, he's coming back, but nobody, there's no nobody has defined this injury. Kieran McGeary was the player of the year 2 years ago, and he's not making the starting team, you know, for the most part.
Why?
I don't know. It's just he is just, his performance has dropped off. It was him that hesitated getting the ball from Niall Morgan, against Armagh that caused Oisín Connolly to get the foot in. It was almost that late goal in round 2 of the round robin game, and just the fall off in the lack of performances from Niall Sludden, that middle eight players, that inventive wee zippy players that they had, it's gone. Tiernan McCann added enormous energy in 21, retired. Mark Bradley, you know, like we this is nothing new for us to be talking about, and I felt that we've talked about this before, but when you lose all those boys, it's not what you get, it's what you get at training. It's the level of performance at training, pushing everybody to the heights in training, which then makes the games feel easier. But like, also, like, Conor McKenna was, people thought because he was kind of streaky or he wasn't making 15 plays a half, right? He would be very, very quiet for 20 minutes. And the next thing then, he might get 2 or 3 possessions in a row, and a goal might come of one of them and maybe a point off the other. But he was amazingly effective. Like, and he would have a turn of pace then to frighten the life out of other teams. He's gone, so they're just nowhere near. Like, you can talk about Tyrone 21, but the Tyrone of 23 is just, it's not that team anymore. And plus 2, they've got into a bad habit of losing games, just not winning games. Like, especially in championships, just an unhealthy scenario for them to be in.
So that's 7 o'clock on Saturday evening in Ballybuffet. Monaghan are taking on Kildare. That one going to take place in Tullamore. That's a 4:45 start for that. Feel whoever wins this will probably be able to reflect on the year as an okay season if they get to an All-Ireland quarter-final. But Monaghan, like defensively, Vinnie Corey seemed very concerned after that performance at the weekend that for entering the latter stages of the championship, they're pretty porous. There's a little bit of toughness lacking there.
Yeah, they're just a wee bit inconsistent, aren't they? Because, they had their performance and a sort of a no-show against Derry in the Ulster Championship, and then went up to round one in the group stages and drew with them. They needed Carl O'Connell to pull them out with that last play of the game. But they had Derry sized up. They didn't do. They had an awful lot of veterans on the first day in the championship, and then they left all the veterans on the bench. Charles only introduced them for the last lot of minutes. That Shane Carey, Mark, and Brendan Rodgers. They did it far more clever. And Vinny and his brother Martin have a great way of thinking their way around games. Themselves and Kildare. There's certain similarities, like Kildare have shown against Dublin, that they can come up to a certain standard, and then yet at the same time they can be prone to big flops. And their league form was odd. They were very poor in Newbridge against Derry, so no one kind of knows where either of these two teams are at. They're a complete mystery at the moment. You'd probably fancy Monaghan. They don't. The one thing about them with Donegal is, and this is the thing with Monaghan teams, is they really they absolutely need the underdogs tag to perform. And when there's any expectation or any sense that they're a little bit comfortable and they should do the business, that's when they're at their worst then.
Is there expectation this weekend?
I would think so, given that Monaghan are stalwarts of Division 1 and Kildare aren't really permanent residents. They do tend to be involved in the business and go further in the championship than Kildare. So for that reason, I would imagine they are.
So I gave Ulster football the big one beforehand. The way you're talking, and we haven't mentioned our man Derry, and we can chat about them when the quarterfinal draw is made, is that maybe Ulster football doesn't have one of the top 4 teams in the country, but might have 5, 6 and 7.
Yeah, it's quite possible, but I will say this one thing, Nathan, and that is, in any All-Ireland championship, right? Your champions emerge, and by and large, they're undefeated, right? They've a flawless record. Yes, there has been many, even from the first time those qualifiers introduced, teams that were knocked out in province went on to win the All-Ireland, and so on it went, and there's been a lot of that. But by and large, you can look at the champions on the 3rd Sunday of September, whenever it was, stand up there lifting Sam Maguire and say they are perfect. They're absolutely, and then that one defeat easily excused away. All they needed to do, they needed that. It gave them the kick up the ass so they could show what they're actually about, right? Now what you've got is a series of games, and it's Galway and Mayo were looking pretty good this time last week. But what's happened is both of them have been grabbed and they've been just dragged through a hedge backwards. And every team has to some extent in this championship. Dublin, of course, they're probably feeling the best about themselves. But Kerry were given a scutcheon, by Mayo. And a lot of teams have been given that. They've been given their real going over at some point. So whoever comes...
Except Derry.
Not Derry, not Dublin to an extent, yes, fair enough. Yeah, not so sure Derry can actually do it in the end. But by and large, if it's not Dublin that win the All-Ireland this year, then the team that comes through it will have had black eyes and busted lips, and you'll have said, you know what, that was a brilliant championship because they were really, really tested, not just the one-off, that's a slip and we just got back on the horse. I actually think this format's great. I'm all for it,
Before we let you go, what's a scutcheon? Scutcheon
mill. It's to do with flax. You've been out of Mayo a long time, haven't you?
Absolutely. I have literally no idea. Declan, great stuff as always.
Thank you, Nathan. All the best.
All our all our Gaelic football coverage is with thanks to AIB and they're proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. You can check out hashtag the toughest for more.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.